Welcome back for week 4 of our Happy Families lesson by video. First week we had Mrs. Wobble the waitress. Second week was Mr. Tick the teacher. The third week was Mrs. Lather's laundry. And today is going to be Master Bun the baker's boy. It's illustrated by someone different, Fritz Wegner. He's Austrian. He's done quite a few other Alan Allberg books, but no other Happy Families ones. He's done some of the collections of poems. So, bakers, as you probably know, cook bread. People used to go to a baker's shop in the old days to buy their bread. Now they might go to the bakery department of the supermarket. So we've got, on the front cover, we've got a very tasty looking cake, balanced precariously there. We've got one of those plaited rolls. I love those, especially at harvest. We've got an old-fashioned lamp hanging down from the A here. And then, look, the baker's boy used to go around and deliver the bread that had been cooked by the baker to all the different people who had bought it, and with a big basket on the front of his bike. Even my bike doesn't have a basket quite that big. Let's read the back. Master Bun, the baker's boy, is fed up with bread. Bread for breakfast, lunch and dinner. It's just too boring for Bertie. I don't know if your meals in lockdown are a bit more boring than normal. Yawn, yawn, sigh. He wishes he was anything else. A bus driver's boy, a balloonist's boy, even a bank robber's boy. Poor Bertie Bun. Will he ever be happy as the baker's boy? And my prediction question for you. Do you think he will be happy as the baker's boy? Do you think he will learn to be content? And that will be the point of the story? That's my prediction. Oh, look, what are these birds? Looking like they'd fancy some. Look, looks like a seagull, but the way his tail comes out of the blackbird, the crow's head, looks a bit like a crest on the back of his head. Here's our title page. I can't help thinking on a rainy day like today how wet this bread would have got in the basket if it was raining. Don't know if he has a plan for wet days to cover it up. Bertie Bun was born to be a baker. See all these things beginning with B. Bertie Bun, born, baker. Lovely and alliterative. We call it alliteration when it starts with the same sound. Bertie Bun was born to be a baker. His dad was a baker. His mum was a baker. His grandmas and grandpas were bakers. His uncle was a boxer, but that's another story. Ooh, we've got Mr. Biff the boxer. I wonder if he's the same one. So let's check out all these baking family members. We've obviously got his mum and his dad there. I reckon that's his dad's dad, that grandfather, with his arm around him, and that grandmother with what they made there. Is that a pavlova? And then the mother's parents who are also bakers with their strawberry cake. Is that the one on the front cover there? Yes. So, looks like Bertie is destined, with parents and grandparents on both sides, destined for this baking. Now, don't you sometimes feel that if you've pushed into something and you have to do it, that therefore you don't want to do it? I suspect that's what's going to happen with our Bertie. When he was a baby, Bertie loved to play with the flour and water. Flour's quite hard to get at the moment, isn't it? I had some in the Whitgift Sainsbury's the other day. When he was a little boy, he loved to carry the bread. But when he grew older, things changed. Okay, so this must be him being a little boy carrying the bread, feeling all proud. And then, look, this must be him older, everything changing. One morning, Bertie Bun climbed out of bed, came down for breakfast and said, "I'm browned off," that means fed up with, bread and bored with baking. "Oh, don't say that," said Mr. Bun. And Mrs. Bun said, "Eat your toast." So they're not really empathising with him, are they? All these trophies on the mantelpiece, all these prizes and cups are from winning baking competitions. Later, Bertie went out to deliver the bread. On the way, he met Billy Bone. Who do you think Billy Bone is going to be? Which profession do you think his dad has got? Which job? There's a clue there. The butcher's boy. But see the pig that they chop up to make sausages? I wish I was a butcher's boy, said Bertie. Bread's boring. Let's swap then, said Billy. So they did. I wonder if their swap is going to work out. Do you know the way to Bottle Street? But this only led to trouble. Billy got lost with the bread and a bad dog ran off with Bertie's sausages. Oh no, where's this dog? Oh, here we go. The dog belonged to Mr. Creep the Crook. Subtle name, but that's another story. This book feels like it's written later in the series. Let me just check the date. Yeah, look, there we go, 1988. You see, the others were written in 1980, 81. So this one, he's got much more alliteration with all the B sounds, and he keeps saying, that's another story. So maybe Alan Allberg, the author, has already written loads of other Happy Families books by 1988. More of their living room scene, more bread for meals. Bertie came home for his lunch. I am very browned off with bread, he said. That's what you said this morning, said Mr. Bunn, and Mrs. Bunn said, eat your sandwiches. Aww. In the afternoon, Bertie delivered the bread he should have delivered in the morning. You're late. I love that. Is it a bird of prey sitting up there? I love this old curly-whirly tree here. So he's delivering the bread to the rich lord in the smart house. Oh, and do you think he's just going to cycle past and shove it into her hand as he cycles past? That looks fun. Oh, look, she's on a kind of caravan. She lives in that caravan. I think this illustrator really loves his pets and his animals. Look, looks like a vulture up there. Certainly not a heron. And then, look, he's got a really grumpy dog. She's got a smiley dog and a little rabbit for her pets. And did you notice Mr. Crook had that sausage-eating dog just now? He met Barry Brush, the barber's boy. So barber, hair cutter. I don't know if we're all giving each other haircuts at the moment. I wish I was a barber's boy, said Bertie. Bread's boring. Wow, they're really going for the alliteration here, aren't they? Let's swap then, said Barry. I'm so interested because I always spell swap. There's a tongue twister. I always spell swap with an A, not an O. I think that's the American way. I'll check that later. Let's swap then, said Barry. So they did. But this only led to more trouble. Barry fell in the river with the bread. Okay. Looks like Bertie's not going to be able to deliver that later. Oh no. Can be tricky riding a bike with a full basket. Right, how is our Bertie going to get on helping at the barber's? Oh, is he actually receiving a haircut here? And Mr. Brush gave Bertie a free haircut that he didn't really want. Oh. Look, can you see Bertie's expression starts fine, happy, and then you can see his reluctance growing as all his curls get cut off and his expression getting more and more uncomfortable. I wonder if he has the courage to say that he doesn't like it when he's being shown at the end, the back of his head in the mirror. I think that's a really hard thing to do. Bertie came home for his tea. I'm as browned off as ever with bread, he said. You're bald as well, said Mr. Bunn. And Mrs. Bunn said, eat your bread and butter pudding. Wow, there's no end to the bread on their menu, is there? I like the cat sitting at table. Look at the dad with his moustache. Don't think he's impressed with Bertie's bald haircut. I don't think he looks bald. Later that evening, Bertie played football. Looks fun. Is he playing football with the boys he's just been sopping with? Had a bath and went to bed. Oh, look at his picture on his wall. It's all little bread loaves with feet. My goodness. Look, even his teddy has got a chef's hat there. Look, can you see his little chamber pot under his, you know, like instead of a potty that we would have now for a little toddler learning to wee in the right place. Look, they've got a chamber pot, an old-fashioned sort of china one. In the night, he dreamt. Ooh, dreamt. Isn't that funny that it doesn't end with an ed? Normally you would write dream with an ed. There's lots of words that sound like they end with a t, like jumped, that actually end with an ed, but dreamt really does end with a t. In the night, he dreamt he was a bus driver's boy. Do you think that would be fun? Is that him up there in his dream collecting the tickets and waving? A band leader's boy, conducting, fantastic, with his hair all smoothed down. A balloonist's boy, wow, going up. Is that bread with him? Look, even in his dream he can't escape from bread. Going up into the sky. They all alliterate, don't they? They all begin with B. A bank manager's boy, making decisions about if people can borrow money. A bank robber's boy, excellent. Maybe he could be related to Mr. Creep there, stealing it. Look, he doesn't look happy though, does he? Unsurprisingly. A ballet dancer's boy, marvellous. And a bishop's boy. He also had a bad dream about loaves with little legs, but that's another story. Oh, look at that croissant with legs. That does look very sort of insecty somehow. Not surprised. Do you remember on his bedroom wall, he had a poster? There, do you see that picture on his bedroom wall with all the loaves with little legs? I bet that's why he had that bad dream. The next day, Bertie Bun was still browned off with bread. And the next day, and the next day, and the next. But the next day, do you remember, if that word is in italics like that, if it's leaning, it means you emphasise it. But the next day, Billy Bone came to tea. Do you remember which one Billy Bone is? There's a clue in the surname, Bone. It's going to be the butcher's boy. That must be Billy Bone. These sandwiches are good, he said. I wish my mum was a baker. All I get is sausages. And Bertie thought about this. I wish my mum was a baker. Thinks. I like how the think bubble's got little clouds instead of a speechy bit coming up. Ah, maybe. Do you think he's going to learn to appreciate his life? A few days later, Barry Brush came to tea. Do you remember? He's the haircut one. Barber's son. This bread and jam, look, do you see how they've hyphenated bread and jam, like it's all one word? Bread and jam is beautiful, he said. I wish my dad was a baker. All I get is haircuts. And Bertie thought about this. Can you see what they're eating? Look, I think Bertie's remembering his not great haircut. We've got all the senses here. We've got Bertie watching, using his eyes. Feeling, using his skin, and smelling, using his nose. That evening, Bertie watched his mum and dad baking the bread. He felt the heat from the ovens. He smelled the hot bread smell in the air and was not bored. Yay, progress! He's learning to appreciate his life. Look at all the uncooked bread dough there with the yeast making it rise. Does look a really cosy scene. Okay, after all this thinking, Bertie's look at his expression, looking an awful lot happier. The next morning, Bertie Bun climbed out of bed, came down for breakfast and said, "Bread's not so bad." "Hooray," said Mr. Bun. "This son of ours is using his loaf." Ah, do you know loaf? Cockney rhyming slang. Loaf of bread, head. It rhymes, loaf of bread, head, and then you just use the first bit, so using his loaf means thinking. This son of ours is using his loaf. "More toast, please," said Bertie, and Mrs. Bun said, "Crumbs." All this bread-related vocabulary. I think the book could end here, because he was discontented, and now he's thought a lot. His friends have come to tea, he's thought some more, and he's decided, even though nothing has really changed, that he's going to be contented and happy. But it carries on a bit longer. Later, Bertie went out to deliver the bread. On the way he met Billy Bone and Barry Brush. There they are, it must be Billy with his sausages. Look at that. What have they spotted? Oh, look, wow. And a performing dog. The dog belonged to Mr. Cosmo. Oh, look, we delivered bread to Mrs. Cosmo a few pages ago. The conjurer. I wish I was a conjurer's boy, said Bertie. Look, he's obviously got the habit of wishing he was something else. And Billy said, but no, what Billy said and what Barry said and what Bertie did will have to wait. There's no more room in the book. And besides, it really is. Da-da. What do you think they're going to end with? The punchline? Another story. You can see him there with his audience of animals juggling. What's he got? A croissant? Hot cross bun? Yum. Did you have one of those over Easter? Split in half and toasted? A bagel. I love those. Really dense. They really fill you up. So this story has ended really playfully, really open-ended. So most picture books are about one problem and then on the last page is the solution. So this was, do you remember Mr. Tick the Teacher was all about the problem the school was going to shut and then the school didn't shut and it all ended happily. But Master Bun the Baker's Boy, our book today, the problem was that he was discontented with his life and his job as a baker's boy. And then on this page, he got contented. He decided that he was happy to be who he was. So it could have finished there, but instead, they've taken us off in a playful new direction with this whole circus thing. So at the end, it's open-ended. Who knows? It's not all neatly tied up. Maybe he's going to join the circus and be the amazing Cosmo juggling baker's boy. It's up to us and our imagination. What new word should we focus on today? That swap. Do you remember that really surprised me when he said, let's swap then, let's change places. It was spelt, I thought that was the American way, swap, like shop, but with a W there. And look, here's my dictionary. Oh no, just kidding, it's my son's money box. Do you see, look, I haven't got any of our little school dictionaries, so I have to use my Chubba enormous thick dictionary. And if you find can you see there? If you find SWAP, swap, which is the way I would spell swap, can we find it? Swap. Here we are, look, see? Swap. Is it in focus? And it says also swap with the O, but that's in brackets because it's America. So I would still spell swap with an A, even though this book, I wonder if it was published in America. I wonder, or if they're expecting to circulate it in America. Where was it published? Oh look, UK, USA, Canada, Ireland, Australia. So they're obviously thinking they're putting it in lots of countries, maybe Australian English. Swap actually, you know, means change. Should we do like a little arrow both ways? So Bertie's going to swap to be the butcher's boy and Billy is going to swap to be the baker's boy. Okay, bald, you probably know. It's just funny, the spelling, because it sounds like a ball and then with a D on the end, but it's just the one L. Okay, so bald, you can think of your little chap with his, or maybe some of you have had a lockdown haircut and it's gone a bit wrong and you've ended up with no hair. You've ended up practically bald. Okay, now we said that his haircut was reluctant. Means he didn't want to do it. So he's looking a bit sad and not sure as he's sitting there with the overall around his neck and the barber cutting his hair. Reluctant. It means he did it, but he really didn't want to do it. He did it reluctantly. Okay, next one was me saying appreciate. It's all about Master Bun learning to appreciate his life. So appreciate means that you've got something that's good, but you don't feel like it, you don't realise it, and then gradually you learn to realise how lucky you are. So appreciate, maybe we'll have somebody learning to appreciate that they've got a roof over their head, even though it's frustrating and they can't go out, at least they're warm and safe and cosy and dry. They can appreciate the stuff that they have got that's good. realise that they are lucky in some ways. Appreciate. And then the last thing, content. So Bertie learns, again, it's a very similar word. He learns to be content with what he's got. So I'm just going to draw a loaf of bread because he's content to be the baker's boy, even if he hasn't got much hair now. He's content with the life he's got. He's finding the good stuff. And he's not just saying, I wish I had that. He's kind of satisfied and going, yeah, I'm content. This is good. There's our words for the week. And I have to just put that swap right. There we are. Swap with an A. So we've got swap, bald, reluctant, appreciate and content. See if you can put them all in a sentence together, or certainly in a couple of sentences in the comments in Seesaw, and have a really good week. Okay, bye.